This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. With the presidential election just 2 weeks away, we look at the richest man in the world, one of Donald Trump's biggest financial backers, tech billionaire Elon Musk. He's poured an additional $75 million into his pro-Trump super PAC. And at a campaign town hall in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Saturday, Musk pledged to give away $1 million to voters who signed his super PAC online petition in battleground states. He pledged to give this every day, $1 million away until Election Day.
I have a surprise for you, which is that we're going to be awarding $1 million to randomly to people who have signed the petition every day from now until the election.
To be eligible for the $1 million, petition signers must be registered to vote and live in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin. Many say this is illegal. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro was asked if Musk's sweepstakes was legal during an interview with Meet the Press Sunday.
I think there are real questions with how he is spending money in this race, how the dark money is flowing, not just into Pennsylvania, but apparently now into the pockets of Pennsylvanians. That is deeply concerning. I think it's something that law enforcement could take a look at. I'm not the Attorney General anymore of Pennsylvania. I'm the governor, but it does raise some serious questions.
Meanwhile, a new investigation by the New York Times looks at Musk's influence over the federal government, with two of his companies, SpaceX and Tesla, accounting for at least $15.4 billion in government contracts over the past decade. For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Eric Lipton, who co-authored the Times investigation headlined U.S. Agencies Fund and Fight with Elon Musk. A Trump presidency could give him power over them. We welcome you to Democracy Now! Can you start off by responding to this promise that Elon Musk has made, $1 million a day to voters in battleground states who sign his super PAC petition, Eric?
I don't really know the legality of that proposal. I suspect, I have to imagine that there were lawyers that examined that before he made that proposal and that promise. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that's a trivial amount of money for Elon Musk. He's the richest person in the world. He's presumably the richest person in the history of the world. So that's a pretty small amount to invest in the final days of this election campaign. And he has, literally billions of dollars at stake of his own business operations, both in terms of contracts that he has with the federal government and, millions of dollars at stake in terms of the many investigations that are ongoing of his company. So that's kind of like pocket change, relatively speaking, for him.
Well, of course, the significance is it may be trivial for him, but for people who would receive it, that's the question. Is it a payoff?
Right.
But Eric.
Right, and I can't address the legality of that. That's up to lawyers and regulators to address.
So talk about this piece that you've just done. You're a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. This investigative report is quite remarkable. Lay out his empire and but most importantly, also, the contracts he gets from the U.S. government and what a Trump presidency, is, of course, supporting Trump big time, would mean for him.
I don't think that it's reasonable to presume that he would get, necessarily more contracting dollars if Trump were president. He is already incredibly popular because of SpaceX, almost exclusively, really, the bulk of it. And it's because his business has been so successful at transforming access to orbit and also communications from orbit. And so both with NASA and the Department of Defense, they're spending billions of dollars to buy services from him because he's delivering things that other companies aren't delivering. So on that side of the ledger, I think he's going to continue to see an increase in business with the federal government because of the services that SpaceX is providing. But the real question is on the investigative side, because Elon Musk is so determined to get things done, and ultimately his real goal is to get humans to Mars, that he often likes to kind of, cut corners when it comes to regulations. He wants to bulldoze his way through. And so he has an incredible array of disagreements with federal agencies that oversee his operations, both from Tesla and from SpaceX. And so it's really all you could go through the acronym soup of the United States government, and just about every major agency has some pending investigation, in many cases involving repeat offenses and multiple fines and or ongoing investigations. And so it's the thing that is most potentially problematic is if he is in fact going to be appointed by Trump to be the head of some efficiency committee that's going to examine federal regulators and the powers that they have, and also examine their budgets. How is it possible that he could be simultaneously the subject of multiple investigations, the recipient of billions of dollars in contract, and the guy that's going to be deciding how to curb regulatory powers and how to reduce the expenditures for these agencies? It's just way too many roles that creates obvious potential or real conflicts of interest.
Let me ask you, last year alone, Elon Musk's company secured $3 billion in contracts from 17 federal agencies. Do you think we're talking about, to say the least, an over-dependence on Musk's companies, which are private companies? And talk more about, Tesla, about SpaceX, and how it's intertwined with the government.
Yeah, the bulk of that money really is going to SpaceX. There's a relatively small amount that goes to Tesla. And most of that money, the biggest chunk of it, goes for launch. And the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, the two reliable rockets that Elon Musk and SpaceX have, are just the workhorses, both for NASA and for the Department of Defense and for the intelligence community. And, it's a combination of factors that he has been so successful in designing, an engineering design on his rockets and the reusability of the parts of it that no one else can really match him. And, Lockheed and Boeing, and they have a consortium that's called United Launch Alliance that's really struggled to get a new rocket going. It still is not ready for national security launches. So the Department of Defense in particular is really reliant upon SpaceX. And I've written about this separately in another story earlier this year, just how completely dependent the United States currently is on him. And I mean, it's not as if they're giving him contracts because of who he is. They're giving him contracts because he can reliably get the NASA satellites and Defense Department and intelligence satellites into space.
So if you could talk about, for example, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opening 5 investigations into Tesla's safety issues, and also Tesla's ongoing legal battles with the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, including cases where the company tried to block rulings punishing Musk for anti-union tweets.
Right. I mean, I have, there's so many of these investigations. I have a little cheat sheet that I kind of built as I was kind of scouring the reach of the federal government to look at all the dockets and pull together information about each of these. But yes, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has 5 different ongoing active investigations relating to things like unintended acceleration, steering wheel detachment, steering loss, and of course, most popularly, the self-driving and the fatal accident involving self-driving. And so that's just at one division of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Over next door at the FAA, they recently fined SpaceX about $600,000 based on their conclusion that SpaceX had improperly conducted 2 launches last year out of Florida that they were not compliant with safety requirements. So that's 2 divisions of DOT. There's also the transportation also was investigating. This is the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, another division of transportation. So now it's 3 different agencies in the one cabinet department. Find Neuralink, which is building implants into brains to help people, who are either disabled to see again or maybe to walk again. But Neuralink was shipping hazardous materials without a hazardous materials permit. So that was another investigation and fine. So, I mean, that's just one federal agencies, but it goes on and on. There's over a dozen The Department of Justice.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you for being with us. Eric Lipton, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, investigative reporter at the New York Times, will link to your piece. U.S. agencies fund and fight with Elon Musk. A Trump presidency could give him power over them. That does it for our show. A very happy birthday to Ravi Karen, and wishing you all health. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.